So crafting in video games can be really intimidating, especially in ARPGs where loot is the name of the game. However, Torchlight has a fairly approachable system that I think we can give a 5-minute overview on to get you started to make relatively useful items for your build early on. Shout out again to XT for working with me on this video. Let's keep things short, let's get straight into it. So the simplest and first thing that you can do in this game is called gear empowerment, and this is the equivalent to socket linking in Path of Exile, but it's much more streamlined. And when you use energy cores, this will re-roll the value here. In short, the bigger the better, and you can roll this however much you want until you get a roll that's relatively high and enough that you can run all the support skills you want for your active skills. You can, however, also hit the maximum, but we're not going to do that here because I'm just far too broke, but 58 is pretty good. When you are able to hit the maximum though, the game will automatically stop you. In short, if you have the resource, feel free to spam without any fear of going below the max once you've already hit it. Crafting, on the other hand, is a much more multi-step process, but still fairly safe to do and progressive in nature. In this example, I'm going to try to make a helmet with life and resistances. And there's basically 3 core resources that you need to do this. The first is called fuel, which is fairly self-explanatory. Basically, you need to consume fuel every single time you perform a craft, no matter what it is. The second is embers, and this lets you select between different resources here to choose the type of mod that you want to roll onto your gear. The last main resource is fossils, and these allow you to guarantee really good outcomes on your gear. In this case, for example, an acute affix would guarantee an increase of 1 affix to gear. However, I'm not going to use these because I'm too poor. To make this super garbage budget helmet, I'm going to start out by crafting, looking for a big life roll, and you can see that I'm able to choose the outcome, or I'm able to choose to also reject the outcome if I want. It also shows the tier at which you're rolling between, and if you look at the affix list over here, it also shows you all the different affixes you can roll within one set. So I'm going to continue rolling this until I hit a reasonable life roll. In this case, T3 is something that I'll settle for. Once I'm done this, I'm going to then look to roll resistances, and these are all suffixes. And you can see as I'm crafting, sometimes it'll also remove the prefix with an option of adding another affix. This isn't always the case though, and sometimes you get to both keep your existing prefix and add on a new suffix here. In this case, I'm probably just looking for relatively good resistances, probably like T5, T4 and above, and it's really easy to see and pretty hard to skip over as long as you're paying some degree of attention. I'll take this. And you can even choose to replace, and I'm just going to keep going until I get all 3 resistances on here. The more affixes you have on an item, the higher the chances that adding a new affix will remove an existing affix. In this case, you can see almost every single time I'm rolling, it's removing all 3 existing affixes, but this time I'm getting T4 cold res, which I will keep on this helmet. I'll finish this particular craft off by adding on damage using an amplified amber to add on one last prefix. Don't really want that low area damage. I'll take this T3 fizz damage. Maybe I'll find some sort of weird jank fizz build to use this on. And that about sums up the crafting system. So you can see that I was able to craft a fairly straightforward helmet that gives life and tri-res and a little bit of increased damage without consuming too many resources in particular. The third core system you can use is called Enchantment, and this is basically the equivalent of the crafting bench in Path of Exile. So when I take on this helmet, I'm able to then select a list of relatively simple modifiers, but simple modifiers that can be fairly useful, especially if you need to benchcraft on a resistance or an attribute for, say, an attribute stacker. Within each group of stats, you're also able to choose the tier of what you want to craft. However, higher tiers cost much more. This, for example, costs 6 Flame Elementium, while the slightly lower enchantments cost, 10 Flame Sands or 10 Flame Dusts. In this case, I'm going to settle for the Flame Sand Armor, finish off this helmet. The last core system I want to cover is called Corrosion, and this is sort of like corruption. Once an item is corroded, it can no longer be crafted over. But the other thing is that you're also unable to corrode an item with a crafted modifier on it. So if I select the helmet that I was using earlier, this one right here, you'll see that enchanted gear cannot be corroded, and it'll automatically remove the crafted modifier if I would like to corrode this item. In this case, yeah, I want to do that. Now there's different sort of corrosion outcomes you can go for. Mutation adds a random powerful affix or could switch out an affix. Chaos randomizes all the values on the gear. Void basically just does nothing except corrode. Arrogance upgrades one of your affixes by either 1 or 2 ranks, and Desecration upgrades 2 affixes by 1 to 2 ranks. So I'm just going to randomly corrode this, and you can actually see the odds of different outcomes happening before I go for this. I'm really hoping for Mutation because I think it'd just be pretty cool. We're going to hit it. Let's see what happens. So in this case, you can see that it actually upgraded my T3 life into T2 life, which isn't a particularly bad outcome. And yeah, I'm going to take that. There's nothing you can do. You cannot reject this, unlike other crafting. And this is sort of the final step for gear. Thanks again to XE for supporting me with this video, and I look forward to seeing all of you log on real soon.